Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and this is the best movies of the summer of 2018. So, I know it's a little late to be doing a best movies of the summer, but I do like to do these every year, basically. So, sorry about that. I think it was actually a good summer. It had kind of a really bad point in the beginning, really, because you had Infinity War, and I think that was like such a big cultural movie. People were talking about it. People loved to hear their theories, what they thought about these things. It seemed like the rest of May just like didn't live up to that. And I don't know if you necessarily could, but also didn't help that those movies sort of suck. So it wasn't really a great beginning of summer. I think the end was a lot better. I think starting in July 4th, you had a lot of good indie movies. You had a lot more interesting, smaller things. I think that brought the summer up. We still had some really good blockbusters this year. This isn't going to be a list of just like art house stuff. It's going to be a diverse list, I hope. I felt it was. Not every summer is great. I think whatever the summer was with Fury Road, that was maybe one of the best summers of this decade. I don't think this is going to be a great summer, but I still think it is a good one. It had some interesting flows, and I think there's definitely some memorable stuff we'll be talking about for years and years from this summer. And we definitely got some cool blockbusters that's worth to spend all the money and see on a huge, even bigger IMAX screen and things like that. So in terms of like, did this summer live up to the hype? I think it did. I just think it had a period where we were all getting a little like, this is what the summer movie season is, Solo and Deadpool 2. It just felt a little unsurprising, uninteresting. It wasn't that fun, really. I wasn't a Deadpool 2 fan, frankly. I'm not really a Deadpool person, I guess, but I think the rest of the summer really lived up to that and had some really interesting, awesome movies. And it still was a good summer movie season. I just think it had a weird flow to the beginning. They usually nail the beginning better than the end, but it seems like now May and June seem to be the worst times than like July, August. Seems like in July, August, they can like release different things. You can have a smaller movie do better, things like that. In May and June, they're like, oh, we better stick to the script on this and not rock the boat too much, and you're just like a little bored with it. So these are only films released pretty much between basically when Infinity War comes out, because I guess that's the beginning of the summer now, and then even though it was April, but Marvel can do what they want until Labor Day. So anything that you think I was very passionate about post Labor Day, it doesn't count in this. So that's how I'm doing it, basically. I did not get to see everything, unfortunately. I didn't get to see Upgrade, which I wish I had gotten to see. I have a screener of it. I plan to see it and review it at some point. I did not get to do that before this. I think that's like the most major one. Yeah, I didn't get to see the Meg either, but I don't get the impression you guys are going to be too upset about that. So, let's now count down what I felt were the best movies of the summer. I want to bring up that it's more of a list, and they're not really ranked, except for the top one is what I felt was the best movie of the summer. But there's no, if you're like, why'd you put this above that? The only one you could say that about is the top one. The rest are sort of a random assortment of things. So that's the deal. All right. There are 6, yes, movies I'm going to talk about in this video. All right. So in no particular order, but first off, of my list of the best movies of the summer of 2018 is Mission Impossible Fallout. This film runs so smoothly and effectively. Director Christopher McQuarrie, who directed the last Mission Impossible, Rogue Nation, and now is directing this one, Fallout. When he did Rogue Nation, I don't think it was like maybe the best directed, but it was impressively directed, considering he didn't had the experience with big films like that. This film has so much more confidence in the cinematography, to the action sequences, to the plotting. He is a writer-director, and the last 2 he's written and directed, which is kind of interesting. But Christopher McQuarrie now moves like you used to have with action movies, which is you have very seasoned studio directors meticulously and purposefully managing an action film, and it flowed so well, almost like smooth butter in an amazing restaurant or something. It's just like immaculate how well it moves. Immaculate to such a point that you might almost take it for granted. It's the kind of studio direction you'd see from John DeBont, or when he was good, John McTiernan, also when he was good. Those guys aren't guys who get a lot of auteur theory written about him or something, or aren't the big names, certainly. But like, if you look at their filmographies, you're like, oh wow, some of those sequences were absolutely stunning and amazing. Christopher McQuarrie has really moved on to that. He wrote the Usual Suspects, and now he's like become this like immaculately good action director in a way that, like, I think most directors nowadays who are good action directors almost like can't disappear into the movie and have this well organized, well oiled machine the way Christopher McQuarrie does. And I love movies like that, but I will say that Christopher McQuarrie's direction, as much as smooth and as much as well flowing as it does and propulsive as it is, and how much it gets you into it, because you immediately go, oh, this is an action thriller or something. This is a guy who knows what he's doing. You can see that all throughout Fallout. I will say you do take those films for granted. And I think Christopher McQuarrie, it almost like sort of doesn't matter if they win, because you know they're going to win. You know, spoilers, I guess. They always win in Mission Impossible movies. Like, you get it. And this film, I don't think necessarily, like, doesn't think you think it's gonna, you know, it's gonna work out for them or something. You get, like, it's impossible and, you know, they'll be arrested or something. Has that ever happened in the show? I didn't watch the show that much, but it, like, I don't feel like it ever would. Like, I think with these Mission Impossible movies, it's like, it is about the journey, not the end result. And that is what's so awesome about it. So the next movie on here is The Night is Short, Walk On Girl. This movie really has the feeling of a night out in college, a drunken night out in college, kind of a night partying. I don't know if it really actually takes place in one night. It seems to be sort of the joke of the movie. The movie even very self-awarely is pointing out that it is probably not all in one night, that this is a ridiculously long night that all these things have happened in. Often, I think when you're that age and you're partying all night and you're going on adventures while partying all night, it does feel kind of endless and frivolous and crazy and insane and like nothing you've ever experienced. And I feel like Night is Short, Walk On Girl captures that incredibly well, and particularly with some beautiful animation and freewheeling animation from Makashi Yusa. The style of Makashi Yusa is so out there and kind of crazy in some ways that kind of giving it sort of a reality lets it kind of bounce off and go in crazier directions. It is a loose kind of film, but the animation makes it feel even kind of looser. But I feel like it captures the kind of one night film really well. But it also reminds me of Scorsese's After Hours, in that you kind of like don't believe that film in some ways, but there's certain experience to that film and there's an experience to this film. It does feel like maybe his like fun kind of college movie, which I don't know I wanted, but I definitely, while I was watching it, was thinking like how this feels like the bouncing of imaginations, the idea of being like this big person in college, you know, the way the girl with black hair is in this film, she almost feels unreal. It feels like the crazy, perfect, like manic pixie dream girl gets to be the protagonist, but still gets to be idolized and be as perfect as she ever was, which I think is sort of interesting. In certain regard, you could say, she has flaws in other regards, but she can like drink like crazy. She's very impressive. It kind of confidence you have when you're going into college, having that confidence to just go up to a stranger at a bar and just start talking to them, hearing about their life. It feels very appealing at that time. Also being nostalgic for things, while also falling in love, while also doing some crazier things. This film like really gets that, and I think it works within its crazier animation style. And that's actually the only animated movie on here. Alright, so the next movie to talk about is kind of a comeback, and that is Black Klansman. Spike Lee manages to make one of his most Hollywood movies that's like fun, a funny concept, the idea of a black man calling the Ku Klux Klan, infiltrating them, having, you know, a white guy come into the Ku Klux Klan and like be his double so he could meet with them. And it's a laughable, fun story. You know, if you heard that even on a news magazine, you'd watch that story. That's how did this happen? It's like beyond belief. That is interesting, and he's able to use that story, and that's funny. There's a lot of funny things, there's a lot you can say with just that thing. Spike Lee does that, but he manages to put enough between it where you're both making fun of the Ku Klux Klan, understanding that they're a threat, understanding that they do kill people, understanding that they're a serious threat. I mean, they do a lot of horrible things, as well as understanding that this guy infiltrated them and made them look like fools. And there's not a lot of directors who can do that. I think this is almost a story that would play under most directors as a comedy. It's silly. It is silly. This movie can be very funny. You know, you've seen the part in the trailer where he's saying like how he hates blacks and stuff. That's very funny, okay? That he's able to take something that if you edited just some parts at the beginning and the end out and certain scenes, you could make this, you know, perfect for syndicated TV, but it would take all the punch out of it. And that's what makes this film kind of remarkable, because it's like Spike Lee, he knows how to tell a story. He knew to rely on this true life story and make this true life story into a really fun, entertaining, interesting film, but he was able to make it say more, cross-cutting, doing things he's done before, but not getting too weird, almost like taking on things and understanding his sense with those scenes, making one of his more purposeful, interesting films he has in a while. I didn't see Chirac, in all fairness. At the same time, this like made me really kind of invigorated by Spike Lee in a way I haven't in a while. Like Black Klansman, you know, plays in a way that plays like kind of like an easy kind of rental thing. Oh, that's a funny premise. But he is able to kind of elevate this material in ways that makes you go, oh yeah, that is Spike Lee. That's why he's an important filmmaker, because he can make you walk away, and at first during the film you think, oh, this is a fun movie, you know, it's like, it's about these things and I enjoy Do the Right Thing and I'm having a good time with all these characters, and then he'll really hit you hard and leave you with a complicated, complex argument, and you're thinking about it and thinking about all the different facets of it and how he's able to show life in such a way. It gives you that knot in your stomach. It makes you leaving the theater and thinking, and that's what I've always liked about Spike Lee. One that I think maybe people will be like, oh, you're picking this, Jim, but it was such a big movie. It was such a big moment for me. I had my dad talk about it, so it's a tip off, but I kind of still find it to be a really great film, and I saw it twice in theaters. I liked it both times. I can't wait to see it again on Blu-ray, which I haven't when I shot this. But I just think you can't talk about this summer without talking about this movie, and that is Infinity War. In terms of being a huge, ginormous, blockbuster kind of movie, I think Avengers Infinity War does that very, very well. It does that better than any movie has ever done it. It might be the most expensive movie ever made. I know it's on the list of the most expensive films ever made. These big kind of limited series kind of crossover events that Marvel would do. Infinity Gauntlet always reminded me of something like Secret Wars. In those things, you don't kind of get those fun moments that Marvel's known for, the fun character beats. You don't get these like kind of character studies. You don't get these like people overcoming various things in these big crossovers. It's almost more about the battle and the event than anything else. And I think Infinity Gauntlet is one of the best comic book crossover movies to ever have done that, or at least ones that I've read. I always loved it for that. You know, as I got older and got more into story and character and things like that, I was surprised how this big epic story that I always knew as like this amazing thing maybe didn't hold up the same way as those smaller individual stories do. I kind of think that's an unfair thing to say about Infinity War or Infinity Gauntlet, really, is because you are telling this massive, huge story, and really your story is more about Thanos fighting these heroes. It's almost like where you would normally have a hero in terms of story construction and plot and stuff is where Thanos is, and then all the other Marvel heroes are kind of like an expanded villain role. It is interesting to see Hollywood push this far in the superhero genre, push maybe as far as it'll ever go. I don't know if they'll ever be able to necessarily top this. I sort of don't think they ever will, but I mean, maybe eventually. But it is quite an achievement. It's a corporate Hollywood huge, ridiculous artistic achievement, and I think Kevin Feige probably deserves as much credit as the Russo brothers do at this point, just for like getting this to actually happen. But it is an amazing, beautiful, crazy event to have seen. Just seeing it all come together and seeing it all sort of work as well as it does and be as compelling and not really feel like however the fuck long this movie is really kind of the biggest achievement, is that this flows so well. You know, I don't know if it's my favorite MCU movie. I do think it is quite an experience, and it's the kind of movie where it's like I definitely need to see it again because I care so much about these characters. I want to pick up on all those little different things. I actually think you could rank these. The rest are sort of just a random assortment of movies that I thought were fine examples of the summer of 2018. But the last two were, I think, these sheer classics have the best chance of getting on my top films of the year, and I think were some of the very best films of the year. So I guess you could sort of rank them, but I'm not going to say this one's kind of the runners up, I guess, and that is Hereditary. It moves and flows in a weird way. It's surprising and scary and unsettling and very well kept and very purposeful, but also feeling that none of the characters maybe know what's going on, and maybe the writer-director has kind of like basic ideas of what's going on, but maybe doesn't even really know the answers. I assume he probably does, but maybe he doesn't, and kind of like leads us down all these avenues. It feels very much like he understands why each of these beats are happening at their certain times. He might not understand what that beat means overall, and that's spooky and creepy, and there's a real sense of not knowing what is going on. Are these people being haunted? What is really after them? What is haunting them? And I think one of the things about this movie is it really has a great central kind of metaphor to it, and I think horror works very well metaphorically, but having such a clear metaphor, I know a lot of times people say, well, Night of the Living Dead can represent this, it can represent that, and blah 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 blah, but realistically, these films have a distinct metaphor that they're going towards, and it works for them. It feels like it understands what its metaphor is. Also, everyone being left out and not understanding what they're doing felt very Ira Levin, who wrote Rosemary's Baby, the book the film was based on, and Stepford Wives book as well, which influenced Get Out. And I get kind of that vibe where you can tell the protagonists aren't in on what exactly is going on, and that feels spookier, it feels unnerving, it feels more random, it feels like the random chaos of life and horror that you can't control. And a lot of horror, I think, is not knowing what's going on and not being able to explain what's going on. And since this film moves in kind of its own rhythm and its own pace and its own structure, that you don't exactly know what's going to come and what isn't, I think it makes it that much more uneasy, because you really don't, you can kind of guess certain things, I guess, but it doesn't have the kind of regular kind of genre flow. This happens and this happens and this happens. If you've seen enough kind of genre films, you get used to that rhythm, and Heredity doesn't really do that. It kind of moves in its own way that you kind of just really have to sort of get out of its way, because it definitely knows what it's doing by the way it's telling the story. So this is what I thought was the best movie of the summer, the best film I saw all summer that was released this summer. I saw it a little late, but I'm still counting it. And probably so far one of, I think, maybe the best movie of the year, but I think it's definitely up there, and that is 8th Grade. Middle school movies are kind of unique in that middle school isn't a cool period of anyone's life. No one's like, man, middle school was the best. I don't really get people to say high school is the best, to be honest, either. But middle school especially is full of awkwardness and fear and being scared of almost who you are in front of your peers, and being uncomfortable, and your body's changing, not to get too weird, and you have lots of zits, and it just feels like everything that was going on when you were a kid is changing, and it's rapidly horrible, and everyone's cruel to you. And I didn't have the greatest time in middle school. Most people, I don't think, have the greatest time in middle school. And 8th Grade captured that, and captured that so much to me. This was like watching a thriller to me, because I just felt like I was in middle school, and it was not comfortable. And I mean that in a good way, I guess. I feel the kind of odd awkwardness of posting things online, of still doing it regardless if you have views or not, having this drive to do it, having this kind of need to do these things regardless of. I don't know if I ever felt I did it to project a certain image of myself the way these kids are, so maybe I can't relate to it on that level, but I definitely do know the feeling of putting your all into a post about something and feeling like, this is maybe not necessarily going to be the biggest thing in the world, but is going to go over well, and when it just falls flat or nothing happens, it's defeating. I kind of get that, but there's so much about the awkwardness that I think at the beginning I watched the film, people were laughing a little bit more, but I noticed as the film went on, they weren't laughing as much, because it just honestly feels too uncomfortable and too sad, and too you're kind of in this shitty popularity awfulness ride, and you're not going to get off. This is a movie that, if anything else, feels very real and very authentic, but almost so authentic you really just want to look away, even though you never really could. Alright, so that was my video for the best movies of the summer. I hope you had a good summer movie season. Again, sorry this is a little late for doing a summer movie review countdown thing. But, the summer's technically over, so I guess that works. But anyway, I thought it was a good summer. I'm sorry I'm doing so many deep focuses and different kind of videos. But that's kind of just, I guess, where I am with YouTube right now. But I still try to see all the bigger stuff and more interesting stuff, and I'm still doing reviews, so don't worry about that. But I think this has been an interesting summer content-wise. I went to my first convention with MomoCon. I worked on other videos. I did so much stuff. And also, as a movie-going season, it was pretty amazing. So I want to thank everyone for sticking with me through this entire summer. You've all been really great and are the most supportive, awesome fans anyone could ever ask for. And especially me, since I'm I'm the person talking, I guess. Anyway, why don't you list what you felt were your favorite movies of the summer below in the comments? I'm very curious to read them, as long as a poem asks me to review Joanna Man, which hopefully I will eventually do. But yeah, leave below in the comments what you felt were your favorite movies of the summer, and subscribe if you would like to. See, I wore a Jaws shirt because summer, and Jaws, this is the summer.